Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Those Were the Days. I know what you're saying. What the heck is trivia? Well, maybe not. Hopefully not. But today we're doing the Season 1 trivia questions that came with the program that I use. It had some, X-trivia stuff or X-ray trivia stuff from, I think, IMDb, the International Movie Database, which is IMDb. Kind of fun to know that. A little bit of trivia for you there. But we are going to go through we're going to go through all but one episode of Archie Bunker, because one episode didn't have any trivia, and it was the Mike's Hippie Friends Come to Visit episode. There was nothing on there for the trivia, so I was like, oh, okay, whatever, doesn't matter. A few things that you guys may or may not know, just that I kind of know, is at least one thing. There is a missing episode. Yes, kind of interesting. So with that being said, we will jump into that little fact here in a second. Here we go. Alright guys, yes, so there is one episode, episode 12, which would be this version's episode 12, but that would make the last episode in the series that I did, episode 13. It's called Success Story. So, a friend of Archie's arrives from Beverly Hills, prompting Archie to organize a reunion of their army buddies. I am not sure why this is missing. When I go into the watch on Google, it says that it's owned by Apple TV. That might be why they don't have it on the program that I was watching it on, because I'm not watching it on Apple, I'm watching it on one of the other streaming networks. So, yes. If there's a few episodes missing from either channel, just let me know, and I might not be able to, get it, but I can at least tell you why I don't have it. So yes, there is at least one episode missing. I believe it's the only episode missing from this channel and from the program that I use, because it's owned by a different company. So with that being said, yes, let's jump into some more trivia stuff. This is from Season 1, of course, Episode 1. It says Season 1 was recorded at CBS Television City, Hollywood, California, in Studio 31 from December 1970 to March 1971. If you listen to the very beginning of each episode before they go into the Those Were the Days theme song, it does say, recorded in front of a studio audience, in Hollywood City, California.
From Television City in Hollywood.
Okay, so it does kind of give you that little tidbit during most of Season 1, and then I think in the Season 2 they really stopped doing it just because that intro wasn't really necessary, I guess. It also said recording date December 15th, 1970, gives you a production code of 0101. Okay, little general trivia, but hey, if you're ever on a game show and they ask you what was Archie Bunker's production code of the first episode, well, now you know. This episode contains a rare sarcastic comment from Edith, which is pretty rare until you get into the later seasons when she gets a little more bold with Archie, because Archie gets a little more stubborn. The Bunkers come home early from church due to Archie's disliking of Reverend Felchers, who will be coming back into play down the line. Disliking of the Reverend Felchers' modernistic religious speech. Or as Edith puts it, Mr. Religion here wasn't seeing eye to eye with the sermon. So yes, that episode, the first episode, they come home just kind of randomly. And he didn't like what the pastor had to say. This episode was produced as a second pilot with the permanent cast. So, as you know, in some of these pilots, they don't always have the actors or the cast that they want as their main cast, and they switch things up during the pilot. And then after like episode 2, 3, they find the people that they really want to nail down for the roles. When the show was finally picked up, CBS wanted this one to be the show's opening episode since it contains fewer racial epithets than Meet the Bunkers. But Norman Lear insisted that Meet the Bunkers had been written to the show 360 Degrees of Archie Bunker and should be shown first. A fierce debate ensued, which means someone was going to get fired. Ensued minutes before the air. Okay. A fierce debate ensued minutes before the airing of the first show of the series. Norman Lear and Bud Yorkin threatened the CBS executives that they would do no further work on the show if Writing the President were shown first, which was the second episode of the actual season. CBS finally relented literally at the last minute. So it was about to go live, and they're like, hey, pull this tape, which was tape back then, not DVDs or more prominently now streaming. They're like, hey, pull this one, put this one in, and, they finally gave up. Which I think was a good idea because Meet the Bunkers really feels like it needed to be the first actual episode. So the TV guide Mike has in his hand when he and Archie are arguing about what to watch on TV is issued dated December 9/25, 1970. On the cover are pictures of various children's toys. So it was released in December because it had children's toys on it. Usually around Christmas, Hanukkah, and stuff, they have toys because people give gifts. Okay, so in the next running of trivia here, I'm not sure which episode this is for, but we can kind of figure it out as we go. George was said to have expanded his dry cleaning business. We're talking about George Jefferson opening up a store on Northern Boulevard. Lionel explains about the franchise his father had set up, funded by a lawsuit settlement when George and Louis were rear-ended by a bus. On the Jeffersons, it would be established that George opened his first dry cleaning store in Harlem in 1968 via a bank loan. So a little bit of a difference between the Jeffersons and Archie Bunker, but semantics, who really cares about the little bit, and, people always lie about the big fish stories, so this episode establishes George Jefferson, unseen at this point, as the owner of Jefferson Dry Cleaners, a dry cleaning store franchise. So he did pretty well for himself. According to Archie, George had formerly been the head janitor at the nearby Hampstead Apartments, which is apparently how Lionel had got to know the Bunkers, leading to him doing odd jobs for Archie. Okay, that establishes a little bit of backstory on how a random kid comes into Archie Bunker's place, and especially since he is black and Archie is pretty racist, that kind of explains it, which is a good bit of backstory for those characters. Mike has a brother-in-law for this episode, which means he would have a sibling who is never mentioned. The only relative of his ever to appear on show is his uncle, Kashmir, which is, I think, season 2 or 3. It might even be further than that. I do remember the character. He's a big dude. He does not like Archie. It's a fun episode. But, yeah, it's the only time that we really hear about him having any siblings. And again, things like this change little details that are overall obscure, because if this brother doesn't pop up a lot, then who cares? So little things like that change over time. He has a brother, he never had a brother, he's adopted, things like that just kind of change throughout the storyline, and it's not really a big deal. First mention of Archie having been stationed in Foggia, Italy, I'm butchering that name, mind you, during World War II was in this episode. I believe that's episode 3. At the finale, Archie, Edith, Mike, and Gloria are playing Monopoly again. Archie rolls the die, and long after the roll is completed, one of the die mysteriously flips on its own to another side. So this could be a scene glitch, like they cleaned it up and put all the pieces back. It could be, because they do that for scenes. You take away stuff, you put them back. Or it could be there's a ghost in the studio. I don't know. It's up to you guys to make up your own conspiracy theories about the mysterious dice turning. So, yeah. The title is from the expression, never judging books by its cover. That's why it was called Books by its Cover. Guest stars Anthony Gary and Philip Carey. Both went on to play long-running roles in popular ABC soap operas. Gary as Luke Spencer on General Hospital, which I think everyone pretty much knows what General Hospital is, and Carey as Asa on One Life to Live. I kind of know that one too. I know General Hospital just because it's been around for so long, and then One Life to Live was kind of popular in the 70s, 80s, I believe. The first appearance of Kelsey's Bar, which would evolve later on in the series into Archie Bunker's Place, which is another series of this running character. Archie bought the bar. Yes, it turns into Archie Bunker's Place, which is its own little series, which is pretty fun to watch. It's kind of a continuation of this, but instead of being the kitchen and the living room as the main setting, it's the bar. So pretty fun. If I can find it, I will review that at some time, probably way down the line after we're done doing at least season 2. So if you guys have anything else that you want me to watch, go ahead and hit me up in the comments, because, well, I'm doing Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I will be starting the season number 2 of All in the Family. And after that, we may take a break or we may continue. Up to you guys. I'll continue to ask that question as we get closer to the ending of season 2. The first appearance of Kelsey's Bar, which would evolve later on to, the bar, right? Then President Richard Nixon happened upon this episode. Oh boy. The night that it aired while looking for a baseball game on television. On his secret tapes, because, this was Nixon, he had secret tapes, if you didn't know, made public after the Watergate scandal. He was really mad about the pro-gay stance that he demanded that the show be pulled from CBS because he felt that it would further the gay agenda. Which, I mean, if you kind of look at where we're at now, he might have been right.
In the meantime, I tell this kid, we do have a flag in the class that you can pledge your allegiance to. And he like looks around and he goes, oh, that one?
Archie calls Roger, the gay best friend in this episode, a Tinkerbell, which was a way of calling someone a fairy, which meant gay. Ironically, Bill Sands, who played that character, was Tinkerbell on Mick Hale's Navy series from 1962 to 1966. Pretty funny. The Link versus Patty breakfast sausage debate was initially used in the first unaired pilot of the show. Wow. It was named Justice for All 1968. Okay, so there was in one of the episodes, there was a little debate on whether or not Archie Bunker likes patties or links, which are sausage, and yeah, it's pretty funny. Mistitled Glorious Pregnancy, which is the name of the episode, even on my program, on the Shoutout Factory Complete Series collection. Okay, so the Shoutout Factory is probably or was the copyright holders at the time for the DVD series, and they mistitled it Glorious Pregnancy. It does not tell me what it was supposed to be named. Maybe Glorious Miscarriage, because that's kind of what happened. So, I don't know. If you do know, let me know in the comments, because that's actually pretty interesting, because this one was mistitled Glorious Pregnancy. It probably is called something else, but even on the Google search, it's called Glorious Pregnancy. So, yeah. Lewis mentions that her sister has talked with the lawyers, implying that she was on speaking terms with her sister, but in The Jeffersons, 1975, so going into The Jeffersons TV show, it is stated that Louise and her sister haven't spoken to each other in decades since her sister ran away from home when she was a teenager. So again, little inconsistencies with that, but when you're jumping from one show to another, little things like that can get brushed off. Because again, if they're not a main character, who cares? Let's see. Archie mentions that the Jeffersons have moved in 2 doors down, which could have still meant the house next door, as the houses on the street shown in the opening credits had them as duplexes, meaning one big house with 2 separate, housing facilities on either side, or both sides, with the Bunkers living on the right side of the house. So, yeah, they could have been pretty close, even though there would have been technically more doors, which would have made them next door. At the beginning of this episode, Archie is seen reading the same copy of the Daily News as he was in the previous episode, Mike's Hippie Friends Come to Visit, which we didn't get any trivia from. I don't know why, but, pretty interesting. I will give you a bit of random trivia on that one. There was a hippie with no shoes on, and they showed her feet. It was pretty gross, because they didn't walk. But of course, if you're a hippie walking around in New York without shoes, your feet are going to be disgusting, and Archie does actually mention something about that. So there's your trivia for Mike's Hippie Friends, which we didn't get. So according to Isabel Stanford, the lady who plays Mrs. Jefferson, the aunt referred to by Lionel was originally intended to be the sister of Lois, who she mentioned. Ultimately, it was decided not to include such a character. Sanford added that she was originally called to read for that part of Lois's sister before being called back to read for Lois herself. Okay, cool. Lois or Lois, I'm sorry if I'm... Lois, if I make that mistake. I'm sorry. I read things different. Let me see. Vincent Gardenia, who played Jimmy Bowman, would later join the cast in the role of Archie's Italian-American neighbor, Frank Lorenzo. That's how I didn't realize that that's who he was, but I did remember seeing him in other episodes. The guy who sold the house to the Jeffersons in this episode was the same guy who moves in next door way down the line. So, and that's probably why I didn't recognize him off the bat, because this character, Jimmy Bowman, moves and you don't see him for a long time, like three or four seasons. And then the Lorenzos move in next door, and that's a whole nother thing. So, but he is a little bit older in that episode, so obviously just didn't catch that was the same character. But in a series like this, you really don't catch things like that anyways. It's not a huge issue. So, pretty interesting though. Archie and friends come up with a scheme. This is the same episode where they're trying to get the Jeffersons not to move into the house or to move out of the house that they just bought. Archie and friends come up with a scheme to pull their resources and buy the house from the Jeffersons, offering them a $2,000 profit, which is still pretty good, especially with the inflation rate nowadays, then putting the house up for sale to a more suitable potential neighbors. It would be quite uncharacteristic for working class Archie and friends to come up with that kind of cash to hand over to the Jeffersons. Mike commented on a future episode regarding Archie's friends. Any one of those guys would have to give an IOU to a mugger. Meaning, if they were to get mugged, they would have to write an IOU, which means that they're dirt broke. Pretty funny. So that's kind of one of the future on, and this is where things like that really don't matter because it's in a future episode. They wouldn't be able to afford the extra $2,000 to get the Jeffersons to move, which is pretty funny. This was the first appearance of Lois Jefferson, played by Isabel Stanford. At least I got her actual name right. Lionel says his parents bought Jim Bowman's house for around $25,000, about, give or take, $162,000 in 2019, so give or take about the same as right now, with $5,000 down on a 20-year loan. Okay, that's about right. I mean, for a house that size, yeah, probably. The song Mike and Gloria were listening to on the TV was Sly and the Family Stones, Let Me Take You Higher, from their 1969 album Stand, which included the number one single Everyday People. I think I know Everyday People. That is actually a pretty good song. I if it's the right one, I believe it's Everyday People. I know that one. Final episode with Gloria having her hair in a perm, which, with the exception of Season 8's flashback episode, Mike and Gloria meet. With Sally Southers wearing a wig. Yes, I do remember that episode. It's way down in, as they said, Season 8, but it was ridiculous to see her wearing that wig. It was so jarring. This is the first episode that Archie tells Meathead to get out of his chair simply by saying the word chair while looking at Mike the Meathead. That was a pretty fun scene, especially since he just went, chair. Bert Munson appeared early in the show as Harry Feeney, the old man that comes to give Archie the news about his job. So he's talking about the security guard. Before he assumes a more permanent role as Justin Quigley, and later on when Edith finds an old man and the bunkers unofficially adopt him. Okay, I don't actually remember that happening, but okay. I watched the entire series like this last year, and I probably just zoned out on a couple of episodes. Holly Ivering appears as Claire Whittemire in 2 consecutive episodes. This was the one that I was telling you guys about, but is never seen again. In We're Having a Heat Wave, Edith does mention that she moved away. So the lady that brings her the briefcase in the episode where Edith gets jury duty, she was in 2 episodes. She was in that one and the one, I believe, after it. And then she kind of disappeared. And I did remember saying that she was not like a mainstay character. So, yeah, but at least they did mention her and gave that character some closure, which is always pretty good. Archie mentions 3 guys who work with him: Stretch Cunningham, Little Elmo, and Black Elmo. Okay, Little Emmanuel and Black Elmo. All 3 eventually appear separately in future episodes. They do. I only remember Stretch Cunningham just because of the guy who it was played by. We will get to that eventually. Let's see. Per the title, Women's Lib, this is talking about the Women's Lib episode now, was at the start of the feminist movement that sought equal rights and equal treatment for women over a wide range of issues, from abortion to sexual harassment. Yes, a lot of stuff happened in the Women's Lib movement, and so that is pretty interesting that they made an entire episode about the subject. The title makes biblical reference to the Last Supper. This is the last episode of All in the Family. AITF, All in the Family, was set to cease production after this episode, the last episode of the season, the last show of the season, but fans fell in love with the series over the summer due to reruns. So thank God for reruns, because Archie would be no more. That was actually one of the ones that I read, and it was pretty interesting, because we would not have any more Archie Bunker if it wasn't for summer reruns. So, and I think that is the case for a lot of shows. The Mets game played on the date the show aired. Okay, so the Mets game actually was played on the date the show aired, which they were talking about in that episode. April 4th, 1971 was opening day, with the result of the Mets beating the Expos 4-2. Pretty interesting stuff. Wow, okay, and that is it for the trivia, guys. I hope you guys liked this series that we did. We will be jumping into season number 2 next week, but we are also still doing Avatar: The Last Airbender. He's over here with my little Yoda buddies. If you guys want to go and watch that, I will link that at the end of the video, probably right here for you guys. We will be jumping into season 2, which I am kind of excited about, because I do honestly like All in the Family, or as I like to call it, Archie Bunker. Let me know if you guys ever called it Archie Bunker, if you've always called it All in the Family. But if you want to see an episode of that, I'll link it here, and I will probably link the entire playlist of All in the Family over here. We are again going to be doing season number 2, episode 1, hopefully next week, if all goes well. And yes, I want to thank all of you guys for getting this far in the video. I want to thank all of my subscribers for hitting that little subscribe button.
Just tap it in. Just tap it in. Give it a little tappy. Tap, tap, tap-a-roo.
Which will be popping up here somewhere. And it's always down here if you're watching on your computer. I will have a link to the entire series of All in the Family, as I call it. All in the Family, or Those Were the Days. Some people call it Archie Bunker. I'm not sure if you guys call it Archie Bunker or All in the Family. Let me know down in the comments. That will be popping up right over here for you. And right next to that will be another video as well. So with that being said, guys, I want to thank you guys again for getting this far in the video. I want to thank all of my subscribers for hitting that little subscribe button. And we will see you for season 2, episode 1. Peace.